My friends and countrymen, welcome right here to this playthrough of Canada, where we are taking a look at, of course, what is our destiny. And our destiny is to beat up the United States of America. I know it, you know it, we all know it. And today is the day when it finally, hopefully, will actually happen. What we are going to do today is set up Canada as the beacon of, well, not necessarily freedom, but the beacon of power, control, and indeed an actual kind of nation state right here in this land of North America. We're going to leave it there today because I have taken a gander at this, and listen, I loved this. I loved learning about Canada, but I will tell you that since there is no bespoke content, I think we're looking today at the last episode. I will probably play until 1910, maybe 1920. I hope that you will enjoy this. We will, of course, also dive at the very least a little bit into history, although I'll be honest with you, I am actually more interested in thinking about the topic of thinking about history, if you will. You see, as we stare right here at Halifax, I mean, I gotta tell you, there are so many topics that we could still cover when it comes to Canada proper. What comes to mind, for example, is of course the explosion in the Halifax port right here in World War I that was attributed to the Germans and turned out, well, that wasn't the case at all. And then once you start kind of going into that rabbit hole, you also end up in Afriqueville, or is it Afriqueville? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure whether it is the French or the English pronunciation, but you end up in a situation where you learn about the Black Loyalists, very similar to the United Empire Loyalists that we talked about in the last video. Those, of course, were indeed Afro-Americans that made their way to Canada during the Revolution and so on. And Afriqueville is a really interesting location, isolated and then, well, dismantled under a rather faulty premise, and might I add, under very, very dire conditions. There is so much history still there. I also do, of course, want to stress that this Canada here, for example, well, we are incredibly conservative, very supremacist. I would even argue that we are very much supremacist towards the Franco-Canadians. We aren't really looking towards them as equals or in a partnership of confederation. Rather, we are looking at them as potential Republicans, potential Americans, if you will, which I'm absolutely certain Quebecois would take as an insult as well. This is a different Canada, and I have no doubt that at this point, and we can definitely prove this if we look at this, we have now, since we have switched over to religious schooling, without a doubt implemented the residential school system that historically, of course, existed as well. By the way, we have fully leveled this up. That is amazing. You love to see it. Which also you can actually see right here, right? If you look at the Métis, you can see that indeed they are technically speaking 16.5% here in Manitoba, but they are only 5% Catholic, which means that a large number of them has actually converted away. The same is, of course, true right here. Look at these statistics. We now have 43% in Protestant. You can actually see, by the way, that I didn't get a single piece of migration. I think the Anglo-Canadians were here. The Gujarati are actually the only migrants that arrived within the time frame of the game. The Anglo-Canadians, I think, were here when we started. And then all the way over here, it is very, very similar. That, well, yep, there it is, Protestantism. This is, of course, a historical thing that happened. I called them the numerical treaties, but that is, of course, incorrect. They are called the number treaties that ended the independence of, well, the Native Americans right here in Canada, the First Nations, as you say. They were placed on reserves, and then later on, indeed, the actual residential school system was established, bit by bit destroying their culture, tearing them apart. It is a dire fate and a dire chapter without a doubt, but it is nonetheless interesting because it should be considered simultaneously. What should also be considered is, of course, the story of BC. I mean, there is so much that can be said about this. There are so many stories worth telling, including, for example, the Fraser Canyon War, right? This is 1858, before British Columbia is properly founded, and you have the gold rush right here. We already mentioned this, of course, with the Overlanders of 62. It is 1858, and some Americans coming mostly from California, very diverse bunch, of course. When I say Americans, I mean many different Europeans coming together right there in America, made their way to British Columbia, and the Fraser Canyon War is almost sparked, barely, of course, avoided. And the entire issue goes even deeper on a macro level because it is related directly to potential ambitions where the United States of America may yet annex British Columbia. Instead, of course, that did not happen, as people such as James Douglas, the governor at the time of British Columbia, seated right here in Victoria. At least I believe this to be true. I don't think that Vancouver was all that important at the time. Anyway, he decides to settle the issue, and indeed they do. They also repel with that, of course, potential claims that Americans could wager into that direction. There are so many interesting things going on here. Not last, a person named Amor de Cosmos, literally love of the universe. Actually, he was the second prime minister of, well, the second premier, I suppose, of British Columbia, there are so many interesting stories to tell. But especially with how deep we are now into this playthrough, there's actually something that I want to focus on. I want to take a good look at, well, what I effectively would call taking a look at history, right? What is our meta perspective? How do we enter this process? How do we get out of it? To take in what exactly that is and what it means for us today, but also what it meant for the people at the time. But I think articulating in such a way that this message receives the proper kind of care and the proper understanding isn't all that easy. I still want to try. When we are on this channel, we always dive into history, but I want to stress that, well, when we do this on a rather superficial level. There are certain topics where I have read a lot, where I know a lot of things, and I will of course share this, but ultimately, and this is my personal opinion just in general, I am a fundamental enemy of like video essays and such, not because I'm like they are inherently bad or anything, but rather because how much more could we explore, how much more could we discuss if it was in written form. I personally believe that I prefer books, I prefer papers much more when it comes to a deep dive, of course, because you can be much more deliberate in those circumstances than you can even be in a written script for a video, because you always take into account, hey, what do I need to animate, what needs to go in there when you write a script like this. A book doesn't need to worry about this. It can just give you the information that matters and really go deep into it, which is to say that when we dive into this, of course, we only get a glimpse, we get a very first impression of the history that we are dealing with, right? As here it is Canada, elsewhere it might be Sicily, and so on and so forth. Now, if you're taking anything from these videos, because I did of course see lively discussion in the comments and it is always worthwhile. I think the history of any location and of any people is always worthwhile exploring, no matter how it went, no matter what really played out. But if you're taking anything from this, then that when we discuss this, you should always take into account that there will be bad things, that there will be negatives that take place. And I really do not want to be misunderstood there. I am of course now in this case specifically referring to the residential school system, how it ripped families apart, how it attempted to of course erase a culture. This is just a fact of the system itself. It's not really about this in essence though. What I mean is that when you expect that something negative will come your way, I really want you to not start going into it thinking, hey, it can't have been that bad, or hey, I really don't want to think about this. And on the other side of things, I don't want you to go, oh, you know, okay, well, there are so many bad things, this is just one of them. I don't think that is the right approach. We are talking about human history, and human history is, well, about humans. Whenever you encounter something like this, be it here on the channel, be it elsewhere, right, I would ask you to consider this from an angle of genuine compassion. Even if it is centuries ago, or maybe thousands of years, it doesn't matter. If it is just 5 years ago, where I'm coming from with this is that as much as we only evaluate the surface of any given history here, because this is a video format where we embed everything we do into history rather than exploring history in a deeper sense, I would ask you to just look at your fellow man, essentially. When you look at Canadian history, with all of its ups and downs, all of the interesting elements, all of the great things and all of the horrible things, I want you to look at this not with ignorance, not by hardening your heart. I want you to look at it by thinking, hey, this is the history that happened to real people, and there should be a base level of compassion that we take in. Don't be squeamish about it, don't ignore it, don't look away, but rather take it in, because man, I gotta tell you, every time I look at history, I am incredibly inspired. I think, and ultimately I think that is what it comes down to, I think I just really love humanity. With all of its flaws, it is absolutely horrifying every now and again, but it is important to take in that this was done and that it happened to real people, and that we owe them, that we view them as people, right? So even if we don't explore things in greater depth, and we are going to come back to Canada, I can already feel it in my bones, just because Canada surely is going to be involved in the eventual United States of America DLC, let's be honest here, and then we're going to return to this and we're going to explore ever more history, like all that stuff that I teased here. But essentially all I want to say, listen, if you take anything from these videos, let it be compassion for the historical events, because that is the most important part in understanding and in acting on the history, be it surface level or very deep diving, that you take in your daily life going forward. And so with that being said, there is actually a really interesting thing that I want to take in. Like I said, we are a much more repressive version, not just towards the Métis and the actual, you know, the Cree and the Siouans, of course, but also towards the Quebecois, and this in itself itself, of course, is also a very interesting topic. I mean, much more recently as well, the question of the quiet revolution in Quebec, for example, there's a lot going on there. But what I want to focus on is actually something else. And this is, I believe, the very first time that this is happening in Victoria 3, in this kind of, at this level, I suppose. I'm not sure that it is entirely desired, but it shows a really cool historical thing that I think we should be expanding upon. Take a look at this. So these are the trade unions, and I'll be honest with you, given the population that we have as peasants, it isn't all too common that the trade unions are actually powerful. If you remember any previous patch, yeah, they basically never got anything going. Listen, here's the way that I see this, okay? The trade unions here are powerful, and I ask myself, why is this? Did we do anything? And I checked, oh, take a look at this, it is mostly in Quebec. And now if you know one thing about Quebec in this playthrough, then it is that the weekly migration, as much as it currently isn't displayed here for whatever reason, has been absolutely massive. Look at these population numbers. From what I can tell, over 4.5 million people living in Quebec was only cracked in the 1950s. And we have already done it, which of course has changed the demographics here significantly. And simultaneously, and this is the interesting effect actually, that we should see more of if you play a New World nation, any colonial nation, they unironically brought their politics. I'm not joking, okay? So, what I mean here is, take a look at this, right? We have a disproportionate amount of trade unions right here present in Quebec, and when we explore, who are you actually made up of? Obviously, we see a lot of laborers, machinists, and engineers. They do belong in here, of course. But take a look at them. English, Scottish, those are all of the recent migrants. If we take a look even at the capitalists, who shouldn't really be in here, check this out. So they are in Ontario. Let's go for the Quebec English folks right here. Take a look at this. They have a 0% attraction towards trade unions, but they are in there. And mechanically speaking, the reason for this is that when a pop moves somewhere, and when a pop merges with another pop, they keep some, if not all, of their, interest group, attraction, and so on. So wherever they already were. Which means what these people here, these Englishmen brought into our country is actually the trade union tradition, maybe of Northern England, maybe of Southern England, right here from London, right, that they had in the homelands. Indirectly, everything that this means is that the politics of Canada really are the politics of all of the different groups that we brought into the country. They have given us so much in wealth. And if you take a look at this right here, check this out. Earlier I saw it actually, a ton of our peasants, I believe, that are actually trade unionists. Look at that. They are Occitan. Isn't that insane? I think that is actually insane. We essentially, look at these statistics. They are meant to technically be rural folk, and they will be switching into this as they stay in Canada. As their politics change from their home nation into, well, Canadian politics essentially, they are going to normalize, but for now, we have an unbelievable amount of trade union Occitan Catholic peasants. To me, that is insane. I love this, because it means that the politics that we're making, the interest groups that we see here, well, they are kind of still very much stuck in finding their Canadian identity. Now, currently, and I really want to stress this, we are led by an enlightened royalist. This is, of course, Joshua Norton, Philosopher King. Listen, I love it. As somebody suggested to call him a viceroy instead. Is it viceroy in English? I'm going to go with viceroy, why not? He is leading this nation into a different chapter, into a very different direction. He is doing this, though, with the Anglican Church. Now, I will tell you, he's not really motivated by that, right? Like, he doesn't really care about it. And the Anglican Church here in particular is very conservative. I think I will be changing our government coalition. Let me check this. I am going to go with a unified urbanite kind of attack. We're going to go ahead and we're going to ask, hey, aren't we more allowed with the fellow urbanites that have arrived here from the old continent? And if so, shouldn't we move into their direction? This now will give us a lot of opportunity to change things. We could theoretically change this. We could, of course, change monarchy as well. But we aren't going to do that one in particular. I think what the old world brings here is just the understanding that it was hell to be a worker in France and England and so on. I'm going to go ahead and actually start introducing the workers' protections. We need rights for our workers because this is Canada. Let's go ahead. Now I will, as this is now the last episode, also push ourselves into one particular direction. You can see we have a chemist now, we got an astronomer, and he is doing splendid work, might I add here. We are almost done mapping the moon. You love to see it. We are getting, of course, a lot of military research done here. I wish we could have done some other stuff as well. Maybe in other playthroughs. I really do enjoy Morgenröte, I'm not gonna lie. Somebody brought up, and I do agree, a paleontologist. That would be really great. What do I need for this again? I need, I think I literally don't have the technology yet. So there are two technologies that I really want. That is theory of evolution, of course. And then paleontology. Oh, there it is. So it's directly... Oh, and I need nature protection as well. I desperately need to go into the direction here. The other thing that I really want to do with Canada is to kind of push us further and further into being an incredible powerhouse when it comes to architecture. We are surely enamored with, you know, beautiful cities. This is one of those things that you can do in the New World much, much more easily than in the Old World. Although, well, I should add, of course, that France notoriously did this as well. They got rid of much of Paris and rebuilt it. We're going to do this except with, well, our fresh cities, where we don't need to rip out just as much. I'm going to go ahead and actually expand our capital yet again. It gives us a couple of bonuses, why wouldn't you? And I think after that, I have to look into blueprints. I want to focus on something, maybe city monuments. Take a look at this, isn't that amazing? My god, seriously, that is insane. Man, oh, a parade ground. Yeah, that actually sounds accurate. Oh, state school, state prison, now we're talking. See, and this is exactly aligned with what I had in mind. Our industrialists are very much empire industrialists. They might be English, they might be Canadian, but they are used to, well, the terms that we negotiate by in the empire. They've agreed to state-mediated negotiations with the trade unions over the implementation of workers' protections. Getting this compromise is common sense. And because of this, we can unify the old world interests that go ignored in France and England proper and actually realize something better here in Canada. I'm going to go ahead and I think I am actually going to say yes, I support the trade unions in this, because I am Joshua Norton, I suppose. Dude, I am going to get so many loyalists from Quebec. I think the question of, and I mean, religiously they already mostly converted, but the question of republicanism I think is dead in Quebec as well. It seems to be like a dead issue at this point. Now let me just be a little bit cheeky. I need to declare some interest because I basically had none. I need more and more countries to support my independence. Again, it is a bit weird, but we gotta do this because this is the only thing that actually starts, you know, picking up right here. I already have a bunch of deals. I am going to pick up as many as I can. Let's go! After many years of intensive observation and mapping, as well as using state-of-the-art photography, our astronomers have been able to create an accurate map of the moon. I think I am late. Wait a minute. 1890. Oh, wait a minute. I actually think I'm pretty on time here, right? Created a map of the planet Moon. This will add 25 astronomical prestige. We get modern physics. Hello, I'm currently researching that. Okay. He gains experience and he also becomes a moon observer, bringing us more and more items. Look at this solar system slowly but surely being completed. That is actually so cool. Look at this dude, highly competent young man. I love Dr. Smith. The Great Train Smash. An enterprising entertainer has arranged for two aging locomotives to run into each other at a local fair. The resulting collision may pose a danger to the crowd, although that hasn't stopped Joshua Norton, Viceroy, from declaring that he will have a front row seat at the event. Listen, if he dies, okay? That would be a freak accident, worthy of exploring. He lived. Alright. Okay, they're not the strongest, at least I assume they won't be, because of how few buildings they actually have. But you and I both know I have to go either with the Globe and Mail or with the Publishing Society of Canada. I think I'm going to go with the Globe and Mail. I love the innovation bonus. Both, of course, do produce the prestige good right here. Yeah, you know what? Sure. Globe and Mail it is. Now, I am going to offer an insane deal to Britain. I will stress, of course, that I could cheese this via non-colonization agreements, but you know what? No. To put ourselves in line with the idea that I do want to be upgraded to a dominion, but I am not actually rebellious, I am going to tie us ever more to the British crown when it comes to the economy. For 5 years, you shall indeed have rights to all of these things right here that I offer you. I think we already did ports. Yep, that is fine. I could do coal mines, but you know what? I'm gonna try this. Let's see, 55% chance. Maybe it's going to work. Maybe it is not going to work. Oh, actually, it is going to work because I will be owing you an obligation. That's fine. Yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Boom. There you go. And all of a sudden, my friends, we are so back. Let's see. Ring Road Palais. A nobleman overreached himself building a palace in the new city district of Ottawa. The half-finished building ruin threatens to become an eyesore. Yeah, I mean, it's just $500. That's okay. The Ring of Progress. A new ring of boulevards binds city and state together. Oh, that is awesome. Well, we really are expanding. He is getting a lot of experience right there and a lot of architectural splendor as well. Let me double check that real quick. I just want to understand this system. We could do more urban splendor, but I think that's okay. Why don't we research? What does this actually do? Academic progress per month? I don't even know what that is. Oh, I see. So this is... what actually speeds this up right here. Okay, understandable. I don't want a new architect. I need to change this. I want I think a painter. I don't think I've interacted with that, like, at all. But, you know, okay. Why don't you do a masterwork? That's okay. And you, my friend, give me a city monument. I would love a triumphal arch. No, Frederick! He has contracted cholera. How could you? Please ensure that he lives? Jesus. Oh, and it's actually happening. Thank God. Britain, I love you. Okay, they're disinterested in us. Well, alright. I will owe you an obligation, my friend, and now we are a dominion. I will never become independent. I do not care for it. I do care, well, for my very own colonial wars over here. Okay, and I'm gonna buy zoo animals now. First from you. Oh God, I can actually choose. Jesus. I want a cassowary. Absolutely. You gotta get a cassowary. Are you insane? That's the only thing that matters. Can I get more? Oh. Oh, there it is. Our zoo is enriched by a new exceptional enemy. Today, animal. Today, the long-awaited cassowary moved into its new enclosure. That's just really cool. I don't know what else to tell you. Where's my zoo building? I know it's a building because I've seen it in other countries. I got the National Library, of course. Natural Reserve, still haven't built any of them. You know, forgive me. I don't think I have a zoo, man. Where would I even find this? Urban? Surely it's an urban building. Oh, and this is now the first threatened revolution. And I'll be honest with you, this is carried by the Métis. Very, very clearly, right? This is happening in Manitoba and Saskatchewan and of course in Alberta, where we had the least in terms of migration. The old world politics really aren't well established over there. That is fascinating. If they fire, they fire. I had a request from the petite bourgeoisie to pass National Guard, and I have to adhere to that, of course. Very interesting. I know which interest groups are behind them, but I'm pretty sure the people fighting here will be our Métis. Oh, and they got oil in Alberta. Well, time to get rich, baby. Canada gains 1 architectural blueprint. Okay, so we did that. Wait a minute. Can I build this? Oh my God, I can. I will build it in 2 cities. And I actually need to be careful here, right? I obviously need to upgrade our railways a little bit. Yeah, we just get so many pops and there's so much going on there. Not to mention, by the way, and I didn't bring this up at all because I think it is actually like a pretty interesting situation. We constantly are in a bad spot when it comes to the British market access right here. Mostly driven, of course, by the fact that they just can't do it. But to be honest with you, being slightly more cut off from the British makes sense to me, if you ask me. Oh my God, and are we actually going to see this rebellion? It's only the intelligentsia. Are you led? Who are you led by? Led by an Anglo-Canadian reformer. This is clearly about minority rights. It is about the Métis. Surely they are asking to change our schooling rights, to change our religion, and to finally give them some room to breathe. It is interesting. That is very interesting, in fact. I want them to rebel, to be honest with you. I think this rebellion has been a long time coming. I am so glad that it is actually happening. I thought it would never occur because everybody was just happy permanently there. Let's do it. We are repressive. We are bad. I'm not persuading you of anything else. That's ridiculous. Let's get the palace cat for our zoo here as well. Oh, and there goes Joshua Norton, which turns us much more conservative yet again. We did plenty of reformations, but this right here, maybe it goes too far for protectionist. And keep in mind, the petite bourgeoisie is deeply conservative, of course. Let's seek a marriage here. I guess Hawaii. Our zoo is enriched by a new exotic animal. Today, the long-awaited palace cat moved into its new enclosure. Right, the Manool has finally arrived. You love to see it. Oh, and obviously... Oh, and the petite bourgeoisie, they are joining this? Okay, I'm gonna stop this, of course. That is bad, because they belong here. What is it that really riles you up like this? I guess... Oh my God, it's a radical. What happened here? I'm gonna form a government of good conscience, and then I need to reform in a way that is satisfying to them. Look at that, the petite bourgeoisie. Wow, they want elections. Joshua Norton seems to have been the man that kept it together, but now the old world politics are finally getting a hold of Canada. Instead of us just being governed by common sense, now it is down to the actual electorate. I'm going to go, because nobody's against it, with a census suffrage. Sure. Let's get that done. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm kinda tilted. Now, this was a huge pain anyway, and apparently it didn't record past, what, like 1886? That's totally fine, because I'll be honest with you, the game performs really poorly right now. These people right here went communist. I learned a lot about them. We somehow, miraculously, I'm not sure whether they're still there. Yep, we sent Suans over there. We deported Suans to northern France. Okay, good to know. I also, as you can see right here, went to war against the United States of America, and I won. I also actually went bankrupt afterwards, but, you know, don't worry about that. There it is, declared bankruptcy. We just finished this. You didn't miss much, because I think that there needs to be maybe some rebalancing of both the vanilla thing. I know that the kill rate is too high, and then having this kind of stuff probably doesn't do them any favors. Like, I demolished them. You would not believe it. I also paid like 5 times what they paid for this. Look at this. This is just crazy. But we did come out victorious. We freed New England, we defeated the United States of America, and other than that, I didn't really change too much right here, right? We are on census, suffrage, all that kind of stuff. We are a rather regressive, but now finally democratic Canada. It is a negotiable kind of tradition, though. We could surely push more into the United States of America, but performance is truly horrendous. I have actually had a freeze that reset my Victoria 3 settings. I don't even know how that happens, but don't worry about it too much. Let's focus on the cool stuff. Oh, and I don't have the buttons. That happens sometimes. God damn, that sucks. I don't have the buttons. You need those to access some stuff. You can see right here, I have now a massive national library. I plundered actually Beijing and Washington DC, which was very funny to me. We have a decent archaeological museum. We have a great observatory. You can see right here, we're using the newest technology, even so far as using uranium. I've built a couple of triumphal arches. That is very, very nice. And then we even built a zoo, which says it is small, but actually has like, I don't even know, I think like 22 animals at this point. I really gathered quite a few. Again, we can't actually look at this, but that is okay. Let's take what is the most important part, and with that, of course, I mean our population. Let's examine this a little bit. We are 35% English, the old world politics really dominating right here. We have mostly diminished the trade unions by making everybody relatively, you know, kind of rich right there. I pumped that up, of course, with our institutions. You can see right here as well that Anglo-Canadian and Franco-Canadian. I mean, Franco-Canadian is kind of making a comeback, but at the same time, there's just so much migration. Yeah, we are just majority English right here, because we are receiving all of that. Whereas the West Coast, I suppose, is already much, much more in its own ecosystem. Taking a look at the charts, you can see that we have been quite urbanized, but with the population kind of that we're getting in here, right? We have a ton of peasants as well, of course. Now, in the political strength, this shows itself in so far as the farmers, you know, everybody that is involved, the peasants, of course, they basically have almost no power, because we are, of course, running on census suffrage. All of these folks here are politically aware and getting directly involved. Interestingly enough, and I can't even find them, we don't actually have that many capitalists. You have to consider their power isn't that impactful, because many of our buildings are owned in foreign countries, meaning that we don't get capitalists themselves. Culture-wise, we already went over this. I think that makes perfect sense. We are a much larger country than Canada would have been historically speaking, and we are, yep, deeply, deeply Protestant. It has been an interesting playthrough. I hope that you learned a lot about Canada. It's a shame that it ends this way, but honestly, I am happy with what we did conquer, especially also freeing New England right here. We actually were in control of New York. You can see it right there. Yeah, we, man, maybe I caused the tuberculosis outbreak, you think? We punished them severely, including, of course, in Washington, D.C. We didn't hold that one for too long, because then, indeed, we ended the war quite quickly. We even conquered all the way down here. This was fun. Again, I'm going to leave you right here. We're going to dive deeper into CK3, Victoria 3, and various other games. Make sure to follow and subscribe to the channel, and I'll leave you right here. For now, I will see you later. Alligator.